Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another reloading chat. Gosh, I got a little tongue-tied there, no, didn't I? And I want to talk about this big episode, these riots, which has resulted in all these burnings and everything else, and cars burned, shops burned, everything on the news that happened in Milwaukee, and it's being called a racially related incident. And again, this is how the media distorts stuff. A black police officer shot a black man in Milwaukee. Whether he was armed or not is still being debated. Still not relevant. I don't know why people don't seem to grasp this, that this person doesn't always have to be armed for you to legally shoot them. Again, I'm not sure where people are getting these ideas about that, like that's a big deal, although that does, of course, mitigate things quite a bit, I guess, in states that have different use of force laws than the places I've generally lived. I suppose that does matter. But where I live, that's not really a factor. They just have to be in the wrong situation. Trespassing alone is enough where I live. But that's a whole nother matter, because that isn't where I live. It's in Milwaukee. And apparently there are talks there that there's been a long history of police racism there, and this has been building for years. Well, here's a problem we're running into with all of this stuff. I mean, in this case, this was a black police officer who did this. I mean, are we now going to claim that he was racist? I mean, I guess maybe they'll say he was an Uncle Tom. I don't know. But the thing is, it's starting to get frustrating for all of us who are watching this. We can see the writing on the wall, and we see how this could go down. How do I put this mildly? The reason this has been tolerated is because most white people are not racist. We're just not racist like we were during certain other generations. We actually believe that African Americans are equal to us. Therefore, we have tolerated this up to a certain point. However, the problem that the people who are doing this aren't realizing, they're going down probably the worst possible path with this. And what I mean is, look at previous examples in history. Who was the single most influential person following the Civil War, obviously, because that was a whole nother thing, and slavery and everything else. But in the last century, the single most influential individual in reversing racism and racist practices and policies within this country. One name comes to mind, Martin Luther King Jr. And he did so successfully without riots, without violence, without blocking traffic, without burning buildings, burning police cars, killing police officers, or any of this other nonsense. Any of this Neanderthal nonsense. And he was extremely successful. And for me, I'm old enough to have known people who were regular middle-class Americans during that time. These are the people who helped raise me. My grandparents, great aunts, great uncles. Sorry, I just can't talk. And I recall these topics being brought up when I was younger, as a child. And do you know what they all said? That when they watched him get up and give impassioned speeches about equality, and for him to have dogs put on them, to be sprayed with hoses and everything else when he was talking about peace and love and coming together in unity, that all of those people, their minds started changing. They started saying, this is wrong. This is not right what we're doing. This man is up here just trying to get equality and talking about unity as a country, and he's having dogs sicked on him and being sprayed with high-pressure hoses, and he's being peaceful. This is wrong. And there were people at that time who still had supported segregation who started seriously doubting. Like I had met someone, a relative of mine, who had said, yeah, they supported segregation, but when they started seeing that happening, they felt guilty. They felt bad about it. And they felt compelled to change their mind because they felt guilty over supporting that policy when they saw what was happening. He changed the hearts and minds of people who had racist ideas. Think about that for a minute. He set an example that changed people's minds and made them feel actually guilty about being racist. To the point to where they went and changed their public stance. They voted different. What do you think this example is doing right now to racist people? What do you think racist people who are watching this are actually saying to the rest of us when it's just white people around? Think about that for a minute. They're telling us, you see, you were wrong and we were right all this time. They're not equal to us. They're savages. That's what they're saying. I mean, they say worse than that, but that's what's actually being said now. And what the people who are conducting this activity are doing is breeding new racism. They're taking people who previously coming the other direction. These other people grew up in racism, and when they were challenged with it morally, they couldn't in good conscience continue to support those policies. They had to change their ideas from their upbringing based upon their own conscience. Now, what you're seeing happening now are people going the other direction who were raised in an era where racism has been mostly gone and we're taught it's wrong to be racist, who are now being bombarded with images of a very racist stereotype and scary stereotype being displayed all over the news every day. And they're now starting to question if what they believe their whole lives that racism is wrong is in fact actually true. You're forcing them to re-question that belief with this behavior. And these riots and the way that the Black Lives Matter and all these other people and the Ferguson riots and these new Milwaukee riots and everything else is creating new racism in people who were raised and taught not to be racist. You see how this could end badly? Because the reason this hasn't resulted in anything negative, because white people, let's be honest, we outnumber black people here dramatically. We are more heavily armed. If this kicked off into true violence, we would win by an overwhelming majority. It's not even in question. So the reason this has been allowed to go on is because we're not racist. We're all going, well, this will blow over, and these are just some disenfranchised people and they're angry, and this is kind of the attitude we're having. But eventually, if this continues and continues and continues at this rate, you're going to see a lot of white people who were never racist a single moment in their life going, okay, we've had enough of this shit. And when that happens, it's going to be bad for everybody. It's going to be bad for everybody. No one's going to win. I'm not going to win. You're not going to win. Nobody's going to win. That's a worst case scenario. The only people who win is maybe the KKK and the neo-Nazis. They might win. Because they'll finally see a group they hate exterminated off the continent probably. But so they'll be the only ones who win. I mean, how shitty is that? Sorry, I don't normally cuss on this channel, but I guess it was appropriate in that case. That's the only people who are going to win are the racists. So at a certain point, the people who are organizing this need to step back and really assess this strategy and what the actual outcome will be of this strategy. Like, what do they hope to gain from it? What's the best case and what's the worst case scenario? And they might want to figure out if they can't come up with a better strategy, because Martin Luther King had a successful strategy and it worked. The man took people who were racist from birth, raised that way, and made them question the morality of their racism. He forced them, by acting morally superior, he forced them to question their lifelong beliefs and question whether they were actually bad people or not. And it worked. This new strategy is doing the opposite. It's making people who aren't racist question if they are right. And That is the last thing you want to have happen. Unless your goal is an actual race war and an actual possible extermination of an entire ethnic group, that should not be your desired result. That shouldn't be your strategy for that to happen, for people to actually question it. Well, maybe racism isn't so bad. Maybe the racists are right. That's not what you want to have happen. Then again, maybe that is the strategy of the far left. Maybe that is their strategy. Who knows? Wouldn't surprise me. Do I want to go here with this? Maybe. I'll just throw in one little tidbit. I mean, a third of black babies are pretty much aborted already by the leftists and their policies, and I don't really want to get into that moral argument at all. But, just throwing it out there. Maybe that's what their strategy is with all of this. Maybe they are running a eugenics program. Maybe that is their goal. Who knows? Maybe they'll find that in some of those emails from the DNC later. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.